Consider the silence that is not peaceful, the space you occupy that has become comfortable, predictable, and utterly non-essential. You are present, but you are not a presence. You are a fixture, reliable as the floorboards, expected as the morning light, and regarded with the same degree of conscious gratitude. You initiate plans. They are met with a negotiable enthusiasm. She initiates plans. They are a tacit command. Your time is treated as a common resource, a public utility to be tapped into based on her fluctuating needs and moods. Your priorities, your work, your solitude, your connection with the old friends who knew you before this version of you, are gently, persistently negotiated downward. They are presented as sacrifices to the greater good of the relationship, while her own priorities solidify into non-negotiable mandates. Your peace is routinely fractured by chaotic emotional weather systems you are expected to navigate and resolve, while your own burdens remain yours alone to carry, lest you be seen as needy or adding to her stress. You feel the slow, granular erosion of your stature. It is not a dramatic collapse. It is a quiet settling. You are not a partner. You are a utility. A psychological Swiss Army knife. Therapist, logistics coordinator, source of validation, and economic unit. Convenient, expected, and ultimately, interchangeable with any other man who would perform the same suite of functions. The intimacy becomes procedural, the respect conditional, the attraction a memory that flickers occasionally, like a faulty lamp. And you lie awake and you wonder, when did the axis shift? When did my sovereignty become a shared democracy where I am the only one conceding territory? The answer is you didn't let it happen. You allowed it. Through a series of small, imperceptible surrenders, each one dressed in the noble garb of being a good guy. You confused kindness with weakness, sacrifice with virtue, and flexibility with a lack of core. You believed that love was built on the absence of friction, so you sanded down every edge of yourself that might cause a spark. And now you are formless, smooth, and offering no resistance to the tide that is slowly washing you away. This pain you feel, this dull ache of being taken for granted, is not a personal failure of romance. It is a structural failure of understanding. It is the screaming friction between what you have been socially conditioned to be and what you evolutionarily must be to command genuine respect and sustain desire. The modern world tells you this accommodation is empathy, is emotional intelligence, is being an evolved man. Your biology, your ancient psyche, the old bones within you, know it as strategic suicide. It is the voluntary disarmament in a game that never stopped being played. And it is getting worse. It accelerates because you are operating in a game whose primal rules you refuse to acknowledge, believing instead in the fairy tales sold to you. The fairy tale that says unconditional accommodation breeds love. It does not. It breeds contempt. The quiet, seeping contempt that comes from knowing someone has no bottom line, that they have given you the keys to their entire kingdom, and that a kingdom with no gates is not a kingdom at all. It is a campground, open to all, sacred to none. You are becoming background noise in the soundtrack of her life. Predictable, undemanding, safe. And in the ancient, limbic calculus that drives human attraction, safe becomes invisible. You are being digested by the very nature you sought to appease. In this lecture, we will dissect the 5 non-negotiable boundaries. These are not tricks. They are not manipulation techniques. They are the load-bearing walls of a masculine psyche that can engage in a modern relationship without being annihilated by it. They are the declarations, established not through dramatic ultimatums, but through the unshakable, day-to-day architecture of your character. Fail to set them, fail to maintain them with stoic resolve, and you will not be hated. You will be made irrelevant. You will become a ghost in your own life to comprehend the absolute necessity of the boundary. You must first pull back the thin curtain of the present moment. You must look past the social theater, the dates, the conversations, the shared modern life. You must see the battlefield upon which this theater is staged. It is a battlefield older than cities, older than language. It is written in your very cells. We are not born formless, waiting for culture to sculpt us. That is a comforting and catastrophic lie. We are born with a blueprint. We are inheritors of deep, old software, running in the background of every conscious thought, every feeling of attraction or unease. To ignore the software because it is not politically correct is like a pilot ignoring gravity because he finds it limiting. The crash is inevitable, and it is not gravity's fault. Every interaction between the sexes, every dance of attraction and commitment, is underpinned by a biological imperative. It is a cold, hard, survival-driven calculus. For women, shaped by the immense biological burden and risk of pregnancy and the vulnerability that came with it for hundreds of thousands of years, this imperative is often channeled through what we term hypergamy. Again, this is not a dirty word, not a judgment. It is a descriptive term for an evolutionary drive to seek security, resources, and genetic quality. It is a brutal, pragmatic survival algorithm. It is the drive to ascend, to secure the best possible outcome for potential offspring. In a world of saber-tooths and scarcity, partnering with a man who could not provide, protect, and whose very being was unstable was a death sentence, not just for her, but for her children. This is not a conscious, mercenary plot. It is an ancient, instinctual tuning of the nervous system. It is a radar, constantly scanning for signals of capability, stability, and strength. Now, for the man, the imperative is different. The superficial reading is that it is simply to provide and to protect. And this is true as far as it goes. But it is incomplete. The deeper, more foundational imperative for the masculine is to establish and maintain value and sovereignty. In the ancestral environment, a man without boundaries was not just a nice guy who got walked over. He was a catastrophic liability. He was a danger to the entire band. Consider the logic of the hunter-gatherer group. Survival depended on roles, on trust, on the efficient allocation of energy and risk. A hunter who could not say no, who could not prioritize the vital, dangerous hunt over the immediate, distracting demands of others, would return empty-handed. The tribe would starve. A protector who could not enforce a boundary around the camp, who was so agreeable that he allowed threats to linger at the edge of the firelight, would see his people picked off. A man who depletes his own energy reserves, his focus, his vigor, his resolve, on every minor emotional fluctuation of those around him has no reserves left for the crisis, for the winter, for the real threat. Therefore, his value to the tribe, and by extension his attractiveness as a mate, was tied inextricably to his structural integrity. His ability to have a line that could not be crossed. His no was not meanness. It was a vital signal of a functioning hierarchy of priorities, where the survival of the whole trumped the momentary discomfort of the individual. His boundary was the bark on the tree. It protected the vital sap within, the life-giving core from parasites, blight, and the elements. Without that bark, the tree, no matter how strong its heartwood, would be consumed. Now, translate this to the psychological realm. A woman's unconscious psyche, what Carl Jung might frame as being influenced by the anima, the inner feminine principle, but also simply her deep evolutionary wiring, is not designed to respect a man without boundaries. It is designed, often compulsively, to test for them. Constantly. The emotional probes, the escalating demands, the what-if scenarios, the negotiation of your time, your attention, your very purpose. These are not always, or even usually, conscious acts of manipulation. They are primordial diagnostics. They are the modern social equivalent of pushing against the camp's defenses to see if they hold. They are attempts to locate the edges, the walls, the foundations of your being. The unconscious question being asked is not, "Are you nice?" The question is, will this man's framework collapse under the weight of my reality? Under the weight of life's reality? If it does, he cannot be a true shelter. He is just another open field. When you fold, when you concede, when you abandon your prior commitment to go soothe a non-crisis, when you sacrifice your mission for her minor inconvenience, you communicate a devastating, limbic-level truth. You signal, my resources are infinite. My time has no intrinsic value. My purpose is subordinate to your mood. My structure is negotiable. You are saying you are a reservoir. A reservoir can be measured, calculated, and its eventual depletion can be planned for. A woman's hypergamous instinct, tuned for survival, will note this depletion date. It must. But a wellspring is different. A wellspring has its own source. It is fed from deep, underground aquifers. It is sovereign. It can give generously, but it cannot be emptied by another because its refilling is governed by its own internal laws, its own connection to something vast and independent. The boundary is what protects and defines that internal source. It says, "Here is where I end, and the world begins. Here is the source. It is mine to tend, and from its abundance I can give." But you cannot take the source itself. The romance, the social nicety, the modern ideal of the agreeable, non-confrontational man, this is a thin, fragile veneer over this deeper, harder, older truth. You are not being judged primarily on your kindness, though kindness from a position of strength is magnetic. You are being assessed at a level far beneath speech and conscious thought for your structural integrity. Your boundary is not a wall you put up against her. It is the foundation upon which you stand. Without it, you are soft, vulnerable, and destined to be consumed, not out of malice, but out of the sheer, unconscious, biological imperative to find something, someone, solid enough to weather the storm that life inevitably brings. This is the red pill of the boundary. It is not about controlling her. It is about governing yourself according to laws older and stricter than the fleeting mores of the present day. It is the first step out of the silent erosion and into a state of being that is visible, substantive, and capable of engaging in a modern relationship without dissolving within it.